Hey, okay. Well, today's discussion, I suppose I should call it, rather than a review, is of a Japanese film called Cairo, or Pulse, to give it its English name. It's directed by Kiyoshi Kurosawa, who's been around for some time and written and directed, among other things, a film called Cure back in 1997, which is well worth a look as well. There's been an American remake of Pulse, along with two sequels to it, but looking at the trailers, they seem to have a very different feel to them. From what I've heard, there is a novelization of the film done by Kurosawa himself, so I might check that out if I can find it because I really like the story and it left an impression on me. To give you some idea of what his films are like, I've heard Kurosawa described as the Japanese Cronenberg, so make of that what you will. One thing I will say is that I debated for a while about how to do this video. On a surface level, the story isn't massively complex, really. People start dying and disappearing in a kind of end of the world scenario type way and start appearing online and in visions and in rooms in buildings which are outlined with red tape. In the sense of using technology to essentially interact with the dead, the film kind of reminds me of White Noise with Michael Keaton a little bit. However, Pulse is far more philosophical. Which is where I hit the snag, really. I mean, as an ex-philosophy student myself, I could probably cobble together what the philosophy at work here is with sources to support it. But I think that misses the point to a large extent. There is a feel that you find in Japanese cinema that I've seen in that of few other countries, honestly. And there are, of course, cultural elements at work, and since I'm not part of that particular culture, I would probably get most of them arse backwards, and I don't really want to do that. I suppose it's more like poetry or the films of David Lynch in a sense, in as much as, you don't have to necessarily understand every aspect of the film intellectually. It's as much about understanding it on an emotional level, I guess you could say. So you kind of feel what it is, but you can't necessarily put it into words without going around in circles. So on to the story then. In a very small nutshell, the story surrounds the idea of technology and technological advancement having a spiritual component. The more time we spend online, obviously the less time we spend with each other face to face in the so-called real world. And I think the film has a lot to say about that, mainly through the experiments with the dots in the computer lab and the idea behind that. People who've seen the film will know what I'm talking about. The story basically suggests that people are becoming more alienated from each other, partly as a result of technological advancement, to the extent that a human part of us is, for want of a better word, dying. Now, what that part of us is, actually, is up for debate. Probably the soul, if you look at the film straight. What could be termed the pulse, I suppose, in line with the title. But there is more to it than that, I think. And it's something that wasn't often touched upon in Western horror in this kind of way at the time. And that's an ineffable part of us that we get from interacting with people, be it empathy, our capacity for understanding human frailty, or even just understanding people on an emotional level and connecting with them. While it is more common in Western cinema today, I think the Japanese do it more quietly and effectively. The significant thing is that the film was made in 2001. Before the internet became the behemoth that it's turned into, its potential was little understood by many. And what started out as a tool or even a curiosity for many people has turned into a huge part of our daily lives. And just like in the film, we have arguably lost something to that. The physical deaths in the film symbolizing spiritual death of part of us, or at least the potential for such a loss. I feel though that there could be something else again beneath that to the story. A comment on the idea that we're evolving into a technological species in a way that we really haven't had the opportunity to before. That we are sacrificing part of our humanity for that, and that the ghosts, if you like, encountered in the film are judging us, pleading with us to be conscious of what could be the next stage of our development as a species, and that we might regain what we have lost, or at least be aware of it so that we can make an informed decision about how much we're willing to lose. This is very different from films like Videodrome. I mentioned Cronenberg earlier, for example, where technology is being used to warp humanity. I mean, the manifestations here are neutral, possibly even benevolent on some level, really, wanting the living to know that they exist, like a warning almost. Another interpretation, of course, might be that we're condemning part of ourselves to some kind of a digital hell, but I think the ghosts would be more aggressive and scarier in a different way if that was the case. I mean, they simply want to be acknowledged, seemingly, and for us to consider what created them and why and how. What is certain, though, is that elements of our reality have become digitized since the dawning of the internet age, and in that sense the film feels eerily prophetic and is well worth a watch if you like philosophical techno-horror. As for the nuts and bolts of the film, as it were, the music is very effective, and the effects are relatively simple and all the better for it. You know, we're thinking Ringu here rather than The Ring. I would say that it's a film of two halves, really. There are two stories which coalesce at the end, and while parts of it feel long, it clocks in at under 2 hours, so it's pretty standard length. Of course, the feeling that it is long in parts may be a consequence of exactly what the film in part is trying to convey, namely that our attention span is part of what we're losing to the fast-paced digital world that we've created, that what we're losing is conscious and awake in the world that it now inhabits and that it is watching. The performances are also excellent. Dramatic, bordering on hammy on occasion, but delivered with enough restraint to make them feel operatic rather than hammy, in my opinion. Now, ultimately, of course, my interpretation of the film is based on my own experience, as yours will be if you decide to check it out. And it's perfectly possible to watch Pulse without seeing it as a multi-level comment on society, which is a testament to the quality of both the writing and the filmmaking, I think, and it's certainly worth giving it a look, as I say, if you like this type of thing. I did debate calling this video a review, or something like my thoughts on blah blah, but I think discussion is probably the best way of labeling it, really. And if you made it this far, I thank you. I hope you enjoyed it, and as always, and with all the above being said, please like, share, comment and subscribe, and all that other good stuff, and I will speak to you soon. Bye for now.